Greetings, fellow citizens of Disneyland. Brickey here on the edge of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It's that time again. It's our July update of everything new that's going on inside of Disneyland. What do you say? Let's take a lap around Disneyland and try to discover everything new and all the changes that we can find for the month of July 2023. One of the things that I wanted to check out in Critter Country is the souvenir coin machine still up for Splash Mountain, where you can see, kind of see in there, that it has the Splash Mountain facade, Chickapin Hill, and it gives you the availability to get one of 3 souvenir coins. I'm very curious how long this will last. And while I'm here, I got to point out the cute facade on the Winnie the Pooh one that is right next door.
You say cheese.
So yes, the Splash Mountain coin machine still here for now. From our eyes behind the construction wall, you can see some of the scaffolding here on the very back corner of Splash Mountain, where they have this chute, where I'm assuming that chute is to let building materials get slid down or pulled up. I've seen that done before, where you create a chute to get debris that you can easily roll downhill, or to have a smooth area to pull up heavier items that just can't be taken up on stairs. And while I'm here, I'd love to point out that the reason why you can see that these are 2 big warehouse doors with little dolly wheels on the bottom there, this is one of the main emergency exits for Disneyland. In the event of an emergency, they could still swing open these construction doors and allow us all to evacuate safely, where we'd end up right at the edge of the Pixar Pow Garage over by the Stitch parking lot, which also leads me to believe that at some point, this is the expansion for Disneyland, where this trail could keep going. We could either go under or over Disneyland Way and find ourselves to more theme park, more Disneyland. If you like hearing about that type of stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I do a monthly Disneyland expansion series where I show you future plans, canceled plans, all plans in the name of growing our sweet, sweet Disneyland. And this trail is one of those most important pieces. Now, I do believe I have caught Splash Mountain work crew on their lunch break, because I did hear some construction out here when I was in this part of the park earlier, and I did see workers all up and down Chickapin Hill when I was here on Friday shooting for the channel. So as you can see, construction workers were busy getting the scaffolding all up and down this main structure. And if we learned anything from watching the progress out at Walt Disney World, one of the first things they're going to do is cut the tree off the top of the mountain, because Tiana's Bayou Adventure has a rolling hilltop. Definitely going to lose some height of this structure in the new version. And I'm one of those people that really, really wished that they would have put that boat up there. I really wish they would have put the boat up in the tree. It just would have been so cool to walk by and see that during the daytime and lit up at night. Although I do say that the lighting package that they have for this so far is my most excited part about what's to come with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And then on the other side of the bridge, we can see that they have paneled out walkways over the irrigation canals we would be riding the logs through. They do this so that the workers can easily just use what used to be the flume as a walking path to get to all the various parts of the attraction, to where they're either removing things and then eventually setting in the new show scene. So imagine if you were able to go inside right now, essentially everywhere where we used to float is now a temporary walkway. So as the Mark Twain rolls away, we can look down below us and see the canal that we used to float in right along the edge of the Rivers of America is now a walking path for the workers to get to where they need to go to work on this revision to get Tiana's Bayou Adventure open for us by 2024. So still not a ton to report on, but the good thing about this being so high up in the air, we will have a pretty good vantage point of at least the upper 3/4 of the construction zone. Another project that's moving along over in New Orleans Square is the conversion from the French Market over to Tiana's Palace. We can now see Tiana yellow painting on the rails all around the front that used to be that sort of forest green that we see over to the left. So definitely not going to lie, that yellow color is brightening up this facade a great deal. And then kind of through the tree, we can see a little bit of those smokestacks emerging. We can see the red brick that's all been shined up and the green and yellow pattern that we can now see with our eyes from the bottom. And you can also see between the smokestacks where the scrim is blowing, sort of a wheelhouse or a captain's quarters. I have to say, I wasn't overly thrilled about this project, but I'm starting to feel just a little bit of excitement for it. And this is one that's scheduled to wrap up later on this year. And over from the edge of the Disneyland Railroad, we get to see a lot of the building. Now that the scaffolding's been removed, we can see a lot of the new paint job. It's looking really good. And you can also tell from our ToonTown video that the building that is closest to us, sort of that macaroni and cheese yellow building, that is painted like ToonTown in that artistic style where you can see that the artists have put in painted shadows underneath all of the different trimming that's around the top. This is a technique that Disney does time and time again to give buildings more depth and to make things feel a little bit more worn in and lived in than something brand new that just popped up. And now down in the courtyard, we can see that the front of Tiana's Palace is completely opened up, and there is just workers and construction equipment everywhere in there as they're getting that courtyard prepared for this reopening. Coming around to the Disneyland Railroad exit, we get an even better view of this open facade and just how much activity is happening down in that courtyard. I'm going to be curious to see how they bring back those green canopy, those scrims that kept us in the shade, because they really took away the view, made the area feel pretty dingy and dark, but also served a much needed purpose of keeping us from sunburns and bird shit. So going to be interesting to see what all of this comes together. And then I'm also curious, is the Witch Doctor apartment still going to be a part of New Orleans Square? One of my favorite citizens of New Orleans Square is the Witch Doctor, whose apartment was just a little bit further down the way here. I really hope that that has been gently upgraded and given a facelift, but not removed. Definitely one of my favorite New Orleans Square subtle details. Now, I am curious, with the Haunted Mansion movie opening up later on this month, will we see Disney do anything special for a release of the second film about the Haunted Mansion? We did see some of the stars show up to do a little bit of PR. Still haven't seen that footage released to the public, but I'm wondering, will they do anything that is for the guests of Disneyland? Limited merch, limited photo spot, meet and greet. It'll be interesting to see what they do for the Haunted Mansion actually inside the berm of Disneyland. Even though both Magic Kingdom and Disneyland both have a Haunted Mansion, lucky us, it was themed after the original that sits here inside of Anaheim. All right, we are seeing a little more activity on the Adventureland Treehouse. It does appear that the roof has been put in over here on the right. And I don't know if you guys can see what I can see, but I see a couple of workers sitting there on their lunch break looking at their phones. I also hear a saw going off in the distance. So, will the project that's now taken as long as to refurbish a treehouse, you could build 2 original Disneylands in the same amount of time, how much longer can this go on for? I've almost just lost complete interest in it. As we come over on the edge, we can see that they have all these new light fixtures. There's even a worker down there that looks like maybe he's installing one or getting one prepared to go out on stage. And then we've also seen a decent amount of activity over here, which will be the entrance and the exit. I'm going to be very curious to see when this finally comes together. And I'm thankful for the removal of those trees in front of Pirates, because it's so nice to see the front facade of that building again. This summer's big 4th of July weekend release from Disney is the new Indiana Jones film, which Disney has announced Indy will be returning inside of Disneyland's Adventureland, as well as some limited edition food treats. But I don't know if you know this, Indy was once here before to celebrate when his attraction first showed up, where he would battle, this area is chaos, where he would battle the desert thief on the canopies all around us on the edge of Adventureland. So think of what they do over at Marvel's Avengers Campus, but in the even tighter Adventureland, where Indy and the Desert Thief would battle randomly throughout the day on the balconies of Adventureland. You think it's crowded now, wait till Indy shows up. And just adding to the overall confusion and congestion, which is the yield point into Adventureland, the men's restroom has been boarded up. I believe there was a water main leak here. If you remember, there was rock work that was over there. Men's room on this side, ladies' room on the other side. And putting this construction wall here and narrowing this path has only made this even more confusing for guests to get around. But in many ways, maybe it's making it flow a little bit better than normal because you don't have as many options. It's just you get funneled through. Whereas there's the people that are funneling through, the people that are using the restroom, people that are coming from the other direction that are trying to cross over to use the restroom. So now that I think about it, maybe I like it better with the construction wall there. That's a new one. Walking on the edge of Fantasyland, going into probably what's been the most chaotic part of Disneyland this summer season, which is kind of weird because when you think about Disneyland in the summer, I often think about Fantasyland and all the families that come here to enjoy the most magical part of the park. Alice in Wonderland is back open for the moment, but will be reclosing after the holiday weekend on July 5th, coming back on the 16th. And I have a theory on why some of these attractions have been opening and then closing again. Now, if you remember when I did my video where we explored this building, which houses Alice in Wonderland, Mr. Toad, and Peter Pan, I was mesmerized by the fact that I realized that the only way for them to get into this building were a set of oversized doors that I saw back here. Now, obviously there's other ways to get in this building, but what I mean by that is this is the service entrance for the building, where I noticed that if this entire building is surrounded by guests, meaning that guests have a 360 view of this show building that houses 3 attractions and 2 stores, there had to be some service entrance to work on the 3 rides that exist in here. Right now we're standing at the back of Mr. Toad, and then this up here in the sky is Alice in Wonderland. So this construction wall around the back side of the building indicates that they have been taking lots of things in and out of their service entrance. Now, whether that's ride related or just oversized building materials for whatever sort of infrastructure improvement they're doing to this building, that's yet to be seen or to be known, but we do now know that this is for sure the warehouse entrance to this building. And incredibly stupid and nerdy stuff like this, learning that is why I love doing the update series. Thank you so much for showing up every Saturday as I break down Disneyland, DCA, Downtown Disney, and the Disneyland hotels. I love doing this so much, capturing, archiving the park, and learning so much about it by coming here every week and tracking all of its differences. So let's file this one under not cool. Somebody obviously scribbled in TB as in Tinkerbell in the Peter Pan tree, where there's the initials of both Peter and Wendy Darling. Come on, man. Leave the show alone. Not cool. Not cool at all. Of course the shops are open, but the always popular Peter Pan has been closed since June 5th, scheduled to reopen on the 30th. And I'll put up on the screen if I can find any other closing dates for July, because I know for many of you, this is the way that you like to start your day at Disneyland. I prefer to make this the way that I end a perfect day at Disneyland. Now, I'm not going to put my camera over the wall, but I was able to see that the front of Peter Pan is completely blown out with scaffolding going all the way up the front of the facade. So when it does reopen, I'm assuming that it'll reopen like some of the other attractions have, where there's a tunnel that you take to get into the attraction, because it looks like they're doing some pretty extensive front facade work on Peter Pan. Mr. Toad is going back down July 24th. We don't know when it's going to reopen, but here's my thought. They close these attractions to do one initial part of the work, maybe to install something, open them back up to try to please as many guests as possible, and they're going to reclose them to finish whatever that job may be. That's the only way that it makes sense to me. And is it just chaos? Chaos in here today. So those blown out construction walls do not make it easier for people to navigate through Fantasyland, as well as having closed attractions, because this land needs every bit of capacity that it can get its hands on. And we're still seeing cosmetic work being done to the Red Rose Tavern, but it is still open, giving Fantasyland some much needed amenities. Not only is it all bagged up, but it's an active construction site during the daytime. I can hear saws and nail guns going off. Like, they are full on committed to whatever project they have going on. No more we only do construction at night stuff. Well, well, well. Look who's returned. Hey, beautiful. Where have you been my whole life? The red wagon has returned on the edge of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, edge of Frontierland. Now, before, some of the luggage in here gave little clues to Discovery Bay, which was the land that was originally conceived for the plot of land that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge resides on. Not seeing those luggage tags anymore, but it is crazy to think that Discovery Bay was once where we now have Launch Bay. But as I talk about in my Disneyland Forward series that I do every month, make sure you're subscribed so you can see it, no idea at Disney ever goes away. So even though Discovery Bay was never built here in Disneyland, if you're fortunate enough, like I have been, to go to Disneyland Paris, you can see that Tony Baxter implemented a lot of those designs at Disneyland Paris, which might be the most beautiful Disneyland of them all, but don't tell my homegirl. Speaking of something you don't see every day, it is exciting to see them using these stages again. I do wish this was something they would take advantage of more and do shows up here, but baby steps, right? Maybe they're finally getting a little inspiration from the success over at Avengers Campus. I am a huge, huge fan of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and when I come here and do my weekly and monthly updates, I always wish that I could discover just a little bit more happening inside of this land that I love. I don't know why it feels like they put so much money and effort into it and then just pump the brakes. Or maybe why they put so much extra TLC into Avengers Campus is because they don't feel as confident about it. I don't know, I haven't been able to figure it out, but I do wish that there was more happening here every time that I showed up. Just more life, more evolution. They even go short with it during the after-hour events. Even when it's a Star Wars event, they go light on their offerings in Galaxy's Edge. I don't know why. Maybe they just think that the land is so amazing, and it is, that it can do all the heavy lifting on its own. But I think people just standing and staring at Chewie and Rey is a great example that folks are hungry for a little something more happening inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I know I am, as a Star Wars fan and a Disney theme parks fan. And I understand that they're always doing different merch drops, limited edition sabers and whatnot. But I mean, that's only applicable to a small amount of people that have the means and collect that stuff. I'm talking about just park-wide updates, just a little more activity inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It would be nice. The monorail will be going down July 5th, right after the holiday weekend. We don't know when it's going to come back. I do believe this has a lot to do with the downtown Disney Sarlacc pit, where the steel frame building is very close to the monorail track. Therefore, they probably need a little bit of extra room to build that building. We also saw the monorail go down when they were tearing down the building that it's replacing. So monorail, when will it be back? Nobody knows just yet, but my guess is sometimes after that building. But it's also not a huge loss because the monorail does close around 85 degrees, which we'll be hitting soon when the sun decides to show up this summer in Southern California. So yeah, we'll be losing the monorail for early mornings, late evenings, but during the middle of the day, quite honestly, it's closed a lot in the month of July, August, and September anyways. And friends, I just did a video about the history of the Matterhorn, its design, its construction. Make sure to check it out. And as soon as the monorail comes back to us after the scheduled break, I will be doing a history video about the monorail. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when I'm not doing update videos, come over and check out the channel where we're always dropping something interesting that shares with you the design, the history, the legacy, the storytelling that is Disneyland. Cannot wait to make a video about the monorail. Go ahead and do me a favor, and you a favor, check out the video I just dropped about the Matterhorn. I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. I do not have the proper lens on for this, but I just noticed that you can see the backdrop of ToonTown from on top of the monorail platform. That is wild. It seems that ToonTown continues to give Imagineering difficulties. Ever since we've seen the land open up, Imagineering has been struggling to perfect it. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, yeah, it would have been perfect if they could have guessed it all right the first time, but art and design just doesn't happen that way. So to see them constantly editing and working on the land to get it perfect, I celebrate that. So last month, if you'll remember, this area was all boxed out. And I believe what they're trying to do is trying to get the flower beds or the cutouts right next to the trees as level as possible. And you can see that there's a little pad in there, but I do remember that it was way worse before. And finally, the area around the wishing tree is now construction wall free. And ever since the land opened, there was a little blockade of benches that they were using for makeshift roadblocks over there. Those have all dissipated and gone away as well. And even though it's not perfect, you can see that they have removed the scrims that were up on top of Daisy's Cafe. Still a little bit of discoloration there, but it's a work in progress. And at least you can see them working and making progress. And the last area to be worked on is the small courtyard out in front of Mickey and Minnie's house. Now also construction wall free, bench barricade free, and it looks good. There's a natural grade here, which kind of makes it feel a little bit more real than most AstroTurf, where they're always sort of perfectly pitched. And earth in the real world, as you know, is not that way, but it feels good. Doesn't feel as much like a tripping hazard, and does make Mickey's house look a little bit real, with a cute little park right across from it. And the final grassy space does feel a little lopsided in spots, but looks great. I think that they might be done with all of this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they keep tinkering, trying to get it to a level of perfection that meets the standards of Disney Imagineering. And the ToonTown popcorn cart returns back into the land after a quick refurbishment. Absolutely adorable little popcorn cart. Not exactly sure what they did to it, but it looks beautiful. Aw, look at that happy popcorn. And for some reason, Donald's splash pad is still not active. And we are hitting the summer season. Kids are out of school. The temperature is only going to increase. It'll be interesting to see when the splash pad finally shows up, giving the youngest citizens of Disneyland a chance to cool off and to maybe cool down. I do wish it was a little bit easier to see Donald's sign because it is right next to the fence, making it hard to fully appreciate it. I am very curious to see when they're going to do something about the fountain and how it does have rust marks around it. But I did notice that the cattails are now protruding water, which I don't believe was a feature that I had noticed before. And if you remember last month, I was pointing out the rust on the bottom of the fountain. And you can now see that that has been painted over with that cream paint, taking away the rust. Looks like a temporary solution. Is there going to be a more permanent one so that the constant splash doesn't keep destroying this fountain? Checking out my favorite vibe spot inside of the newly reimagined ToonTown. And I don't remember this lookout point being here. That's pretty cool. But it is great to see the tree fully open as well as the park over here. Like I said, I don't think that it should ever be looked at as a bad thing that the construction walls kept popping up. It just shows a commitment to trying to get it all dialed in and to make it as perfect as possible. And sometimes perfection just takes time. So I'm going to be so curious, did they finally dial it all in? Did they finally get it perfect? Or are we in between construction projects? Because so far, ToonTown, since it opened up in February, has just been a series of projects. And for now, it seems like everything has fallen into place, but we'll keep tracking each month the progress of the newly imagined ToonTown. I will say that if I have one gentle critique about the new ToonTown is the traffic flow is all over the place. It literally is pretty hard to navigate your way through there. It's like a series of figure eights or bow ties where there's just constant pinch points, which make it a little hard to navigate, especially since you have the youngest citizens of Disneyland that don't care about the rules. They just care about the fun. So the summer heat is back, the summer crowds are back, and Disneyland is once again humming at the start of its summer season. And I made this complaint earlier in the year that the kickoff of summer didn't feel like summer at Disneyland. And now I'm gonna make that suggestion again. Because of the 100th, there's just the purple bunting everywhere. There's no red, white, and blue. It just doesn't feel like 4th of July weekend is kicking off right now at Disneyland. I do not. And as happy as I am that Disney's celebrating 100 years, I wish it felt more like summer at the theme park. I never really realized how much I look forward to seeing the red, white, and blue bunting inside of the park, but without it being here, it just kind of feels like another day. And that was the same thing when spring kicked off. So I do realize that I love the seasonal happenings at Disneyland, and with the 100-year anniversary taking over the park the entire year and kicking off in January, it's just made all of the holidays not seem that transformative. So I'm really, really hoping that the Halloween bunting and the holiday bunting shows up for my favorite 2 times inside of Disneyland. Because right now the summer season doesn't really feel too summery. All right, friends, from the center of Disneyland, kicking off the 4th of July weekend in the Disneyland summer season, doesn't feel like summer too much, or doesn't feel like the traditional summer. I mean, the sun makes it feel like summer. But it just doesn't have that like the holiday weekend kicking off type of vibe, which normally you could find inside of Disneyland. But it's still magical, and I still love coming here and tracking all the different things that pop up every month. So friends, from the center of Disneyland, I hope you had fun looking at this month's update, tracking down all the new things that we could find for the month of July 2023. I'll be back here next Saturday when we do it all over again with Disney's California Adventure. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for being you.